classes for those of you that are new, and they go up. I have a YouTube web channel, a YouTube channel that they go on, so you can go on and watch them later on if you want. And I'll send out emails about that. Okay. We on? Okay. All right. So I'm Debbie Kent, and this is the Garden Goodness class. I realized a few years ago that this was a class I really felt that was needed because a lot of us are starting to garden and get to the point that we need to figure out what to do with all of our garden abundance. So we're going to talk, my class, we're sort of doing these classes backwards, but my class is going to be about what to do with the gardening stuff, what to do with the stuff you grow in your garden, and the second part of the class is going to be about different ways to garden. So let's get started. All right, so I wanted to just review really quick what we've been doing so far this year. So in January, we talked about building our own arcs of preparedness. And there was lots of different levels that we learned about that were all at different levels in preparedness, and that don't get overwhelmed with having your arc all done, and just concentrate on the level that you're on and get that level done before you go on to the next level, because your boat is not going to be strong, your arc won't be strong if you try to build here and build there and build here and build there. You have to be organized and build your one levels at a time. So that was in January. In February, we talked about store this, not that. Right? I cannot remember the name of that class. Okay, store this, not that. And in that class, we mostly concentrated on food and water. And so food for our 72-hour kits, which is our first level. Our second level is emergency food, which is the next 2 weeks of food. Then we talked about 90 days of food and how that can include frozen things or mixes. Last month, we talked about mixes and how that can get incorporated into your regular everyday living and as part of your 90-day preparedness programs. The next level, which is level 3, is your basic year supply. And in January, we talked about how that is just bare bones basic. You can't really make a lot of food out of a basic year supply. So that leaves us to level 4 in this month, which is gardening, is one way that you can add foods to your garden to be able to make meals out of your basics. If you've got pasta as part of your basic year supply, now you can have tomatoes and make marinara sauce to go on your pasta from your garden. So these are all, I just feel like this whole year has just been level upon level upon level. It's just flowed really well. And I'm hoping that you're feeling that way too. And besides the acquiring aspect of preparedness, there is the skill aspect of preparedness. And so this month and next month, we're going to be talking about skills that you can add to your year supply with, I call it the other food storage. It's the things, the fruits and vegetables that make your basics into meals. And so this month, we're going to be talking about stuff from your garden. Okay, this is a quote from Harold B. Lee. We renew our counsel and repeat our instructions. Let every Latter-day Saint that has land produce some valuable essential foodstuff thereon and then preserve it. A lot of the quotes that have to do with gardening also go hand in hand with putting it up, so dehydrating or canning or things like that. So we're going to talk about that. So my favorite way to eat things out of the garden is just fresh out of the garden. I mean, strawberries and tomatoes, there's nothing like a fresh tomato out of the garden. And I have a brother-in-law who does not like tomatoes, and I'm like, it's because he never grew up with garden tomatoes. He does not eat garden fresh tomatoes. And really, tomatoes you buy in the store don't really taste much like tomatoes. So having, eating fresh out of the garden, I love that. We're going to talk about that, and some of the stuff you're tasting tonight are things that are made from fresh things from the garden. But sometimes your garden, because of, you finally figured out how to water it good, and you've got your soil good, and we have, not too much wind and not too much heat, and you have a lot of things producing in your garden, which is great. But pretty soon it ends up like you feel like this, and you go out and it's like you're afraid to go into the backyard because you're afraid of what you're going to find because you're running out of buckets to put that stuff in. So you can feel like zucchini is coming out of your ears, and it gets to the point that your neighbors start running when they see you coming because you're bringing them zucchini. So, oh darn, I forgot to put a picture in wanted to put a picture of is instead of bringing them zucchini, you could be bringing them zucchini bread, which they would be probably a lot more likely to, eat, and you're still getting rid of your zucchini. So, all right. One of the ways that you can do to get rid of all those, overabundance of tomatoes or green beans, not so much zucchini, but some of the other things, is to can them. And canning is a great way. I love canning. We're going to talk about canning next month. But it is a great way to put up your stuff that you can use all winter long. And it's the way that our pioneers and the people, not the pioneers, who were the pilgrims. Yes, there you go. I knew it was another people. The pilgrims. It's the way that our forefathers all survived because they didn't have refrigerators and freezers. And so they grew things in their short summer months and they canned them or dried them and put them up to eat all winter long. And so it's a great way for us to do that too. And it's also a great way to bring your family into it. Another way you can do it for things that aren't so great for canning is dehydrating. And this is another thing that I love to do. These are actually zucchinis that I did. And you'll notice how beautiful they are when they're dehydrated. Dehydrated fruits and vegetables. These are peppers and tomatoes that I did for my garden. And the tomatoes you can actually rehydrate in some cold water, and you can even put them on hamburgers. They rehydrate so well. These were slices. And I just slice them in one of these. Okay? It's not a big fancy thing, costs like $5 or $6, but it cuts your tomatoes so good. It's the perfect width for dehydrating. So these things are great, and I can throw them in soups and stews. And these are 3 years old. Look how pretty they are. I don't even ask me that. It was like something I bought at Home Depot or something. No, actually I got them at the home show. So whatever they grew at the high school for the home show, the few brands that they have now.
And so where did you get that gadget?
Just in a
grocery store.
A kitchen gadget store.
Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart will have them sometimes, or you can go to like the kitchen store at the outlet, or it's not called the outlet mall anymore, but the outlet mall kitchen store will have them. But I think Walmart does have them. Grocery stores don't usually have them unless they have a pretty good selection of stuff. But it has like these little saws on it, and it works really good for peaches and pears also. They can just cut up with it. All right. So I love dehydrating for a reason other than canning is that there are things that I like dehydrated that I don't necessarily like canned. Like my peppers and my tomatoes, I do have canned tomatoes. Don't see canned tomatoes. I do have canned tomatoes, but there are certain things that just don't can that well. Like canned zucchini, it's like mush. I mean, why would you want to do that? So, but dehydrated zucchini is great, and I can just throw it into things, and it rehydrates while it's cooking, and then I've got stuff. So, dehydrating is next month, and we're going to talk at the end of class of how next month is going to work. Okay, so next month's classes. Next month's classes are going to be canning, dehydrating, and juicing. So we're doing 3 classes over the 2.5 hours with a tasting table in between, of course. And so anyway, I think you'll be excited about it. And I'm hoping that you'll all get as excited about dehydrating as those of us that have started dehydrating are, because it's really easy, and you cannot believe how much space you save if you dehydrate your food. Okay, so another thing that you can do with your produce from your garden is freeze it. And it's funny because one of the quotes that I found had something to do about freezing tomatoes. I'm like, who would freeze tomatoes? That's such a weird thing to do. But fruits is great. There's a lot of vegetables that are great, and it's not that hard. And it's a great way to add to your 90-day supply because it's stuff that you're rotating and using as part of your normal stuff. So some interesting things about freezing that you may or may not know. Number 1, freezing fruits and vegetables, they store indefinitely. They do not go bad in your freezer as far as except for taste and texture. Like they're safe to eat. They'll get wrinkly. And sometimes the texture's not quite right on them if they've been in your freezer for a long time. But they will store 8 to 12 months easily in your freezer if you package them correctly. So you do want to store them in airtight containers. These ones in the middle are all done with a food saver kind of thing that suck all the air out. I even read the other day that if you put things in your refrigerator and let them get cold before you put them in the freezer, you're lot less likely to get freezer burn, which I didn't know, so I've now incorporated that into my stuff. I just did, not produce, but I did bacon the other day. I bought one of those Dacon, 20-pound, actually bought 2 of them, but one I canned, this one I froze. And so I partially thawed it, rolled it up in things, and sealed it up like that, and then put it back in my freezer. Now it's in 1-pound packages. But peppers are good, and we're going to go into a little bit more how to do this in just a second. All right, so here's some freezing tips for fruit. You want to wash them, trim them, wash them, and drain them. And if you're using bigger fruit like, peaches or apples or pears or things like that you're wanting to freeze, you're going to want to core them and slice them and cut them into, not leave them whole, obviously, like you would with berries. Then you spread them out on cookie sheets and freeze instead of just dumping them all into a thing. And the reason you do that is that they will freeze all individually instead of into a big brick, which is a lot nicer when you're trying to use them. So you can either put them in, freezer Ziploc bags, you can put them in freezer containers, you can also put them in canning jars, which this one lady was all excited because she doesn't like wasting those plastic bags. So she is using, freezer jars, which is a great way because it keeps it all nice and airtight and will keep freezer burn out. So it's a great way of doing it, rotating your jars. You want to package them and make sure you put dates on them so you know how long they've been in there, and you might even want to put what's in there because sometimes once it's frozen it's hard to tell what it is. So mark what it is. If you're doing fruits, a lot of the stuff that I read talked about using a simple sugar syrup or some fruit fresh, especially in not so much berry stuff, but in like apples and pears and peaches and things like that, so they don't get brown. And they will hold their flavor and their shape better if you're packaging them in something. So I found this cool tip. How many of you have seen this? Okay, do you know what it is?
Peaches, isn't it?
No, it looks like peaches to me. It says it was apples, but I'm pretty sure it's peaches. Okay, so this is what this is. You take your fruit that you're going to make a pie with, and you prepare it just like you would to make your pie, and you mix it up with all the ingredients that you would be putting in your pie as if you're making it fresh. And then you take it and you put it in, not in crust, but just in a regular pie pan that's greased, and you put it in there and you stick it in the freezer and let it freeze. And then it comes out looking like that, and then you package it so that it doesn't get freezer burned, so it can stay in your freezer. And then when you're ready to use it, you're going to take it out, put it in a pie crust, and bake it.
Do you let it thaw first?
No. You can buy frozen pies and bake them, so it's the same idea. Yeah, you just bake it longer. I think they bake usually about an hour or an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah. Did you hear what you said? Put foil on the edges of your pie crust so your pie crust doesn't get too browned, but when it's getting done. But if you let it thaw, then it gets all juicy and it makes your pie crust all weepy and soggy, so you really want to do it frozen. But I thought this was just such a fun idea of, having your pie. It's a way to get rid of your fruit and have it ready to bake into a pie. All right, so freezing tips for vegetables. Trim and wash them, and you're going to be blanching them. And I'm going to talk just in a minute about maybe not blanching them, because I read about this too. So usually with vegetables you blanch them. And blanching just simply means that you're going to put some water in a pot, a lot of water in a pot, you're going to bring it to a boil, you're going to put the vegetables in for 2 to 4 minutes, depending on the kind of vegetables it is, and then you're going to take it out and you're going to put it in an ice bath wash. Probably not in a cute little glass bowl like this, but it looks pretty in the picture. So, and the reason you're doing that is there's an enzyme in vegetables that keeps them ripening. When you blanch them and put them in the cold water, it stops that enzyme so that the vegetables don't continue to ripen. And most high-end restaurants blanch their vegetables, their fresh vegetables, they blanch them because that way they also keep that really green color, like for broccoli. When you cook broccoli at home and you don't blanch it, it gets kind of greenish, brownish kind of color. And then when you go to, out to eat and it's this nice bright green color, it's because they're blanching first. So they blanch it for a few minutes, and then when they go to cook it, it takes less time to cook, and it makes it a much prettier color. So, an ice water bath. So, it helps to preserve the vitamins, keeps the colors, and keeps them from becoming tough. drain them, and you package them and freeze them. So this is putting them in packages. So last night, and make sure you date them and everything too, I read on a couple of blogs, the internet's just great for things like that, that this lady loved doing green beans. She grows her own green beans, but she hates the blanching thing because it is this whole long process, which to me it's not that long, but to her it was a long time. And she had read that you could freeze them and not blanch them. So she did, and she tried an experiment with some that were blanched and some that weren't. And she said her family could not tell any difference between the blanched and the unblanched ones. They stored the same amount of time, they cooked about the same, the taste was the same, and she thought they were even a little more tender than her ones that were blanched. So, just so you know, if you don't want to blanch, it looks like, at least with green beans, perhaps you could, get away with freezing them without blanching them first. Okay, so here's some bonus tips about freezing. The fresher your fruit, and the better that it is. The fresher and better your fruit is, the better your frozen product is going to be. So if you're using fruit that's getting close to going bad, it'll be mushier and not as good when it's frozen. Salad vegetables don't freeze well. That comes as such a big shock to me. What? Come on, I can't freeze my spinach? Okay. The packaging matters. What that means is if you're using decide to use like a sandwich size bag or a quart size bag, and it's not a freezer bag, so it's a thinner plastic, it's not going to freeze as well. It's going to get more air to it, it's going to have more ice in it, things like that. So the heavier, the more airtight your packaging is, the better your fruit is going to be when you're using it. Another thing is you can customize your package size. If you have only 2 people at home and you're freezing your stuff for 6, then you're having to thaw it out for 6, and then you're throwing stuff away. So it's better to just package it in the size that you need. When I did my bacon yesterday, I did most of it in 1-pound packages and a couple of it in 2-pound packages for when I have company and I need more. So you know what it's like with your family. Package it in the size that you want. Leave about a ½ inch head space at the top for expansion, and make sure you label and date. And these are some little tips. Thaw them in your refrigerator in cold water or in the microwave. You thaw it out on especially with fruit, you just thaw it out on your counter, it just loses all the juice out of it. Where if you slowly thaw it in your fridge, in fact, it even suggests the coldest part of your fridge, the slower it thaws, the better off your stuff is going to be. So that means some planning ahead, or thawing it in cold water, that goes pretty fast too. Okay, so there are drawbacks to freezing. Number 1, that is a lot of fruits and vegetables in the freezer. Okay, there's not really much room in her freezer now for anything else. And other things can happen. Your power can go out. I think I have another picture. Okay, so your power can go out. When your power goes out, you will have to get rid of most of what's in your freezer. Some of it you'll be able to reuse, but a lot of it you won't be able to. I found this great picture when I was searching for pictures of this guy making this space and plugging his nose because it stinks when your freezer goes out and you have to clean stuff out of it. So you end up having to throw out a lot of things. So that is a drawback to having things in your freezer. But for the most part, our freezers don't go out, and we're using things out of our freezers all the time. And so it's a good way to rotate and do your 90-day food supply and rotate that stuff through. Okay. So now we're going to talk about garden goodness recipes, because to me this is the biggest part of this class, is figuring out what to do with all that zucchini that's coming out of your ears, or the buckets and buckets of tomatoes. And I love this picture because she's so cute. Reminds me of the teacher last month who brought her, little not twins to do her class, and how cooking with the things from your garden is just such a great way to bring your family together. One of the things about eating stuff from your garden is that in the beginning, everyone loves the stuff from the garden, but by the end of the summer, nobody's wanting to eat the stuff from the garden, right? And most of us have our tried and true recipes that we use, over and over every year, the family favorites. But after a while, those family favorites become the not family favorites. Nobody wants to see zucchini bread after a little while. So tonight, we're hoping to give you some things, some ideas to make you get out of your little box a little bit into some new ideas. And if you have recipes that you would like to share with us, we would love to put them into the handout. So email them to me and we can add them in. All right, so, oops. So, number one in my book up here, most people grow tomatoes. If you're going to have a garden, almost everybody grows tomatoes in it. And although we're not all great tomato growers, most of us at least attempt. So it's number one on my list of things to use. So we are going to start with homemade salsa. And Linda's going to come up and do that. She's going to do 2 kinds of homemade salsa. She's going to do a fresh salsa, and she's going to do a 30-second blender salsa. One that's used with, well, they actually both could be used with fresh tomatoes. And this is her son, Leroy. He's going to assist her.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Turn it, baby.
When you grow a garden, the biggest thing is grow what your family will eat. And so every year we pretty much just have a salsa garden because that's what we love. And so we thought we'd do 2 different recipes with the salsa, and I'm sure everybody makes salsa, but there's so much variety with it, like how many jalapenos, or how many serranos, or how hot do you like it? How do you like it completely ground up, or do you like it really chunky? So that's why you just make salsa on your own, and then as your family eats it, you'll find what you like the best way. Salsa is really great for like diets and stuff. We use it for salad dressing. We put it on our baked potatoes instead of butter and sour cream and stuff. So Leroy is going to make the
30-second.
30-second with canned, which you could use fresh. And I'm going to chop up. I like it really chunky, so I like to just cut it up myself. But these, you could make the same salsa in 30 seconds with these things. These things are so great. Okay, you just follow yours. We have a garden every year. And like I said, it's pretty much a salsa garden. Because everything else it gets so expensive. And so we love our garden.
You guys want to see what she's doing?
And it's just your basic salsa stuff. I guess we should have done this while Debbie was talking. I don't know what to say about salsa except you love it.
What's in it?
Tomatoes and onions. We like cumin, so we put cumin and salt. Those are our only spices besides cilantro and jalapenos, or I like serranos. And sometimes if I'm in a good mood, I will roast my chilies. I'll roast my Ortega chilies because then it's not quite so hot, but you get more, you get extra chili stuff. Could you tell us what you're putting in the blender?
Yeah, right now garlic, serrano pepper, a little bit of sugar, 2 yellow peppers, an onion, salt.
Is it on the handout?
One
Yeah,
of these.
it should be in everybody's handout too.
Oh, what you on it?
Oh, you don't, I do. I like green salsa too, so in mine, I usually add tomatillos. So salsa's fun to play with, to get it just the way you want it.
The thing that's fun about the 30-second salsa is in the wintertime when there's not any good tomatoes, you can use canned tomatoes. And the canned tomatoes are usually pretty good. They're nice and red and kind of rich looking.
And it's really good. It's really good. It calls for 2 yellow peppers, but you can use any peppers that you have. Oh, peppers. Peppers are dangerous sometimes. A lot of people, some people will use like rubber gloves and stuff. Me and my brother have salsa competitions. He makes this salsa and he won't give anyone the recipe. So I make my salsa, and one year we just had so many tomatoes, and we canned, oh my goodness, our whole kitchen table was just loaded with tomatoes. And we had yellow tomatoes and golden tomatoes and red, and we used the
Tomatillos?
yes, the tomatillos. So it was so pretty. And we canned it up, and we took it on vacation, and my brother was there. And he said, whose salsa is this? And I said, it's my BTE salsa. And he says, what's that? And I said, better than Ed's. But so one year he was canning it, and he was making up all his salsa. And he went to the bathroom after he was done cutting up all his jalapenos.
Oh, no.
He said, dropped him to his knees. So, yeah, sometimes choppers are good. If you like them really nice and small. We kind of like it hot because we found that with our salsa, the kids would come home from school and just open the jar and sit on the couch with the chips and just eat it. So the husband says, make it hotter. So each year, hotter and hotter, so they'd only use like half a jar. Get it go? Husband couldn't sleep one night and watched TV and bought this blender. You have to be an engineer to run it. But it is really good. When you're doing it at home, you might want to just blend it a little bit as you go, but with this thing, you usually don't have to. But this salsa will be in the back for you to try with some chips, and it's but I think it is our favorite garden goodness. And even though his is 30 seconds, mine's not much less.
Not much more?
Not much more. That's right.
When you're doing it in the blender, if you want it to be a little chunkier and a little bit thicker, you can drain, if you're using canned tomatoes, you can drain them a little bit better. And then I usually put half my tomatoes in and blend it up with everything, and then just mix in the other half, so it's a little bit, so I have a little, some smooth and some chunky in it.
Pour it in there.
She's just putting some lime into her.
This is some lime and some, it just depends how you like your salsa. To me, this is almost what I call pico de gallo, because there's not like a tomato base. Sometimes I'll open a can of tomato sauce and even just pour a little bit in just to like make it go further. And I don't normally use this kind of garlic, but I do tonight.
You burn your own garlic too?
Yep. I've never done garlic, and I've never done a winter garden, and that will be my goal for next year. Which one's yours? Did you put it in?
Use
Do any of you have a green Ford Escort? If you do, the door is wide open.
All right, so basic, simple salsa. You have the recipes, and they'll be in the back, and you can try them with some chips. But salsa just cans really, really well. have special
You're supposed to.
I have to say you do, but I never have. I cook it on the stove till it's hot, put it in the jars and hot water bath it, and I've had salsa for 5 years.
The thing about canning salsa is that if you homegrow your tomatoes and they have a high acid content, you can do them in a water bath. If they do not have a high water bath,
Acid?
high acid content, then you have to either add vinegar or lemon juice to them or crush or can them.
So grow them from your garden.
So grow them from the garden. And be like aromas. Aromas don't have very much, they're not very acidy, so those ones really need to be pressure canned. Unless you're adding lemon juice and then it tastes weird to me. So, it's up to you. We're telling you what's safe, or I'm telling you what's safe. Linda's telling you what she does. Okay, so, where's my, oh, I gotta switch you back. Otherwise you can't see the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was salsa. Didn't that look yummy? And it's so easy to do. That the 30-second one, my friend actually taught me. It's how she does salsa all the time now. She does parties all the time, and she makes her own homemade salsa. And it's just really, really easy to do. Okay, so I did marinara sauce. And I have done marinara sauce both ways, with tomatoes from my garden and with, this is how I did it now, because there's really no tomatoes that I was willing to buy. So these were, and I thought these were diced. I opened it up last night. Oh, I'm like, oh, they're whole peeled. So I'll show you what happened to my food here. So I'll show you what I did with these to make it so that it worked with my marinara sauce. So if you're using fresh tomatoes, you put them in boiling water. Do you know how to do this? You put them in boiling water for a few seconds, then it pops the skins on them so you can peel them off. My husband prefers not to do that, but I do not like the texture of the skin in my sauces. And so you either can do, like put my tomatoes in something like this, where then it's just basically making a tomato sauce anyway, or you can peel them, which is, I choose to do that step because I don't like the peeling. Okay, so after I peel them, I cut them in half, and the reason I do that is you don't have to do that step, but if you don't do that step, you don't get the seeds and the extra juice out, and what happens is you have to cook your marinara sauce for like 2 days to get it to reduce down enough that it's thin. I mean, that it's thick enough to be marinara sauce. So it's really easier just to squeeze the extra juice out, and part of it is just making sure you use the right kind of tomatoes. When you're doing marinara sauce, you want to use Romas, because they have less juice in them. They're pulpier, and they're thicker, and they're better for marinara sauce. That's why that's what's used in Italian cooking. Okay, so then this is what I did with these, or with those, is I just took the half and went over my sink and turned them upside down and squeezed, and the juice and the seeds came out, and I threw them in my pot. With these, I just took them and squished them up with my hands like this until I broke them up so it wouldn't take so long to cook them down. So, but I did leave the juice in with these ones. I drained the extra juice off and then left the juice from the tomatoes in. So that was me showing that I used fresh. So you can do it either way when you're making marinara sauce. I think this was about $2.50 a can, and I used 2 cans and did a big crock pot full of marinara sauce. Alright, so marinara. So you can either put it in a pot and cook it on the stove, or you can do it in a crock pot, which is my preferred method because then I don't have to watch it this closely. Although I'm finding my crock pot on low is really like on high. So it's at like a boil the whole time on low, so I'm not getting a crock pot. And it's really better if it simmers. So you put the tomatoes in, you're going to add the spices, the marinara sauce recipe that I gave you. I would even cut your spices down a little bit more maybe than what's on there. You don't like it really, it's not hot, but it's just got a lot of spicy flavor to it. But I didn't use any fresh stuff, and that's because when I first started making the recipe, I was dieting and I couldn't have onions on it. And so I just went with onion powder and everything. I went with powdered everything. So it's a true like food storage recipe. There's no fresh stuff except for the tomatoes in it. Then you cook them for about 6 hours. I just do mine overnight, and then you have delicious marinara sauce. Now, another thing that I would do with the recipe that I forgot, and I would have added it in before when I printed it out beforehand, is I would put some tomato paste in it when you're cooking it. Because it is, you see how this is kind of like tomatoey but not thick? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how it comes out because you're using fresh tomatoes. And so it doesn't get that, like, it doesn't coat your pasta. And you'll see when you see it tonight, and I used rotini pasta, the spiral, I call them spirals. And you'll see that it's like you have chunks of tomato stuff and then pasta, and there's some sauce on it, but it's not like if you were making, when I make like my lasagna sauce, it has 4 cans of tomato paste in it, so it's a lot thicker. So if you want it to be a little thicker, put some tomato paste or tomato powder in it. Then you either can eat it fresh, you can freeze it in containers, or you can can it. And I've done it all 3 ways. I just did lasagna sauce, and I froze some. I ate some fresh, froze some, and canned some, all from the same batch. I did a double batch and did it. So I have some all 3 ways. Anyway, so you'll get to try that tonight. And I love marinara sauce. It's a great way to use it because you use a lot of tomatoes when you're making it. So it's really nice. When we were getting the free tomatoes from the from Tehachapi, I did 160 pounds of tomatoes, and I did all salsa and marinara sauce. And so I was doing a lot. I got really good at marinara sauce then because I did a lot of it. Okay, so here's a few more ideas for tomatoes. And these are all recipes that you'll be getting in your handout that I'll email out to you. So this is chicken cacciatore. This is pizza sauce. This is a salad using fresh tomatoes, and that's got like mozzarella cheese in it. This is a taco soup. This one is a tomato vinaigrette, and this is an enchilada sauce that I really wanted to make for tonight, but I didn't because it sounded so good. So those are all recipes that are going to be in your packet to kind of whet your palate for some things that you can do with tomatoes. Tomatoes are a great thing for long-term storage because there's so many ways that you can store them. Dehydrating them. You can make your own tomato powder with them by just drying your tomatoes really dry and then putting them in your blender or food processor, and it turns them into powder. I did the same thing. This is actually pepper powder from these kind of peppers. At the end of the season, we had a whole bunch of peppers left, and so we dehydrated all of them. So this is bell peppers. I think there's habanero. There is habaneros in here too. There's habaneros. There's jalapenos, there's serranos. We grew like every kind of pepper. Peppers do really well up here. But they take up a lot of space. And so I think 4 of these makes 1 of these of pepper powder. And you can just, my husband, when he wants some, it's hot. He can just take a little and sprinkle it on his food, and then he can have hot stuff, and I don't have to have hot stuff. So it's a great way to make salsa too. You can have your, heat all ready to go and just sprinkle it into your salsa. Instead of having to do, cut up your stuff later on. Okay, so forgot to put that one in there. Okay, let's talk about some things to do with zucchini. We have not talked about that yet. So, okay, so zucchini. These are zucchini Rocky Road brownies. I'm going to give the recipe for. This is a zucchini Asian salad. We are not trying that one today. This is really good. This is grilled zucchini. You can do it with any kind of summer squashes. You just cut them about 1/4 inch thick, the long ways, and soak them in like a balsamic vinaigrette kind of thing, and then put them on your grill, and they are so good. You'll love them, and it's so easy. This is, I don't really have a picture of what ours looks like, so this is the closest I could get. My husband has something that he grew up with and taught me how to do. And it is just, you take, for my family, I would do a couple pounds of bacon, and I cook onions up in it, like probably 1 onion. I kind of do it in big chunks, and cook it up in the bacon, and then pour off some of the bacon, and then I actually usually cut my zucchini in, I quarter it, little bite-sized pieces, and cook it up in the bacon grease. It's really not very dietetic, but it's really delicious. And cook it up in that, and then add some tomatoes. If I have fresh tomatoes, I'll I'll do fresh tomatoes, but if I don't, I'll use canned tomatoes with some oregano and basil, mix it in, and put some cheese on top, and it is so good. Even people in your family who don't like zucchini will eat it, because it's, I mean, who doesn't eat bacon? Well, if you don't eat bacon, you wouldn't like it, but if you like bacon, you'll like it. These, we didn't make these this time, but we did do them last class a couple years ago, and these are zucchini chips. And you do them in your oven, you put like cheese and some spices on it, and just dry them in your oven, and they're really good, and you can use them with dips. And then this is actually zucchini ice cream. So lots of weird things you can do with zucchini that you might not think of. So one of the things that I found from zucchini, from all the recipes I went through, is you can sneak zucchini into a lot of things. But if you want to be sneaky, you need to either grind it up in like a food processor or something so it's really small, or use a really fine, the really fine side on your four-sided grater. Not the really, really fine one, but the pretty fine one, because then it's really small and it dissipates into your stuff. I do not really like the consistency of zucchini, me personally. But if I grate it, I can put it in almost anything and I don't even notice it. I can put it in my lasagna or in my spaghetti or in soups and I don't even notice it. I don't have to have that chunk of like mush. I like crunchy stuff, not mushy stuff, so maybe that's not common. But anyway, that's a way to disguise your zucchini in there a little bit better. So you can get it into more things, and I can't really get away from the green part unless you peel it. If you get away from if you peel it, then your family really won't notice it's in stuff. Okay, and I think I didn't put pictures up here, so I'm just going to talk to you about these. When I do peppers, and either from my garden or, like right now they have the red and green peppers at Vallarta are 2 pounds for $1 right now, which is pretty cheap for peppers. And so I'll buy 10 or 12 of them and take them home and slice them up and put them in a freezer Ziploc bag and freeze them with all 3 colors in it. And that's something I can just throw into my Mexican food, or I can cut it up smaller really easily if I need little pieces too. But it freezes really, really well. You don't have to blanch it or anything. You just cut it in half, take the stuff out, rinse it off, and slice it up and put it in. So it's really easy. I obviously use them fresh. I dehydrate them, as you can tell up here. These are, I think, actually all bell peppers that are in this jar. And I told you about the pepper powder already. So those are things that are really easy to do with peppers, that you can use them all season long, and just makes it easier to use instead of having to, I don't know if you're not all like me. I use peppers a lot more. I didn't grow up eating peppers in my family. My family never cooked peppers for some reason. And so when I first started cooking with peppers, I'd have a lot of peppers kind of like celery that I would buy them and they would go bad. So once I started freezing them, I never had that happen. And then it's just so fast to dump it into whatever I'm cooking. Open up the bag and dump it in. Okay, so some pumpkin things. Pumpkin to me is not something, pumpkin grows really well up here, and it's not hard to use. And I don't think it's hard to sneak into things, but if you had a lot of pumpkin, you might need some of these recipes. So this is a corn pumpkin muffin, which I thought sounded really good. These are pumpkin pancakes and pumpkin bread. I mean, who doesn't like that? This is a pumpkin pasta, and I think at the pasta class in the fall, we're going to try that, because that sounded really good to me. This is a pumpkin
Funnel cake?
fry bread.
Okay.
And then this is a pumpkin mousse. So all recipes that are in your things, there's some different ways you might want to try pumpkin. All right, so back on the tasting table, we have things right here, and this actually doesn't even look as pretty as they look. They're a little mini version of this, but these are called zucchini hash browns. And Linda, you want to tell how they're made?
They were one of my most favorite things. The only thing that was a little extra step you had to do was you would shred your zucchini and then you put some salt on it and let it sit for 15 minutes. Well, it would get real watery, and then so you had to squeeze it out. So I just laid cheesecloth in the pan, put the zucchini in, the salt, and then just squeeze it in one big thing, and
is really good. The one in the middle is called Impossible Zucchini Pie, and it's got tomatoes, zucchini, and one other thing from the garden that I can't remember in it. Or maybe it doesn't, if you have it in your thing. So, anyway, this is made with Bisquick, which is a perfect, segue from our mixes class last month to be able to use Bisquick in something that makes a complete meal, and it's really easy. You just mix it all together. This is made with stuffing, so it's zucchini and stuffing and cream and chicken soup, and you just put it all together and bake it in the oven. It'd be really, these two things you could very easily make in sun ovens too, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. This is a zucchini slaw, and we decided we really don't like the dressing on this one, so we would find a new dressing. But the zucchini and the carrots, and I think it's got cabbage in it, the combination is really crunchy and really good. I thought maybe it wouldn't be that crunchy, but it tastes really good. So I think if you'll like that, you'll find that the dressing's a little bit bland, but still not bad. There's some zucchini, chocolate zucchini something back there, I don't remember. This is, oops, go back. These are oatmeal cookies with zucchini in them. Now, let me just tell you something. You can add zucchini or carrots, pretty much any kind of squash, if you shred it and get the extra liquid out of it. The thing that I noticed when I was making the cookies is that it makes your dough gummier. That's the best way I can describe it because of the extra liquid. The breads and the cookies are going to be a lot more moist when you add zucchini to them. And so, which is really nice, they stay moister longer. Chocolate chip and oatmeal cookies usually, when you're making them fresh, only last a couple of days before they start getting stale. And these ones have not done that because they have so much moisture in them from the zucchini. So they're really good tasting, and not only that, but it made I usually make about 100 cookies with my cookie dough recipe, and it made over like 160 cookies just by adding 3 cups of zucchini. I did a double batch, so anyway, that was really good. Some resources. I just got a bunch of new books, so I brought them all tonight for you to see, all garden books. The Zucchini Houdini book, if you want to come up and look at it, it is the best zucchini cooking book that I've ever seen. She has all different kinds of recipes in there using zucchini, from soups to breads to everything else. And it's really easy to follow. Her recipes seem really pretty well thought out. There is, and this one I don't have anymore. I loaned it out to somebody and I never got it back, and I don't remember who I loaned it to. But it's how to use a quart of tomatoes in a whole bunch of different things, which I thought was a great way to do a book. I did just get this one called The Too Many Tomatoes Cookbook. So I've been going through some of these. Some of the problem with some of the books that you get out there, a lot of these books that I got, is most of the recipe is using fresh stuff that I usually would never use. So I'm sort of picky. I don't know if you like that with cookbooks. You get them and you only like 3 or 4 recipes out of them. So we try to go through and pick out the best of the best and put them in, rearrange them a little bit, put them in our stuff, so then you don't even have to buy cookbooks. But there is some good ones out there. These are little ones that I picked up in Nauvoo when I was there a couple of years ago, using pumpkin, berries and cherries, and old-fashioned tomato recipes. So those are some things. You can get a lot of recipes online just for free, just, Googling like quart of tomato recipes, things will come up. Okay. So, benefits of garden goodness. Number 1, you're eating fresh stuff from your garden. How good is that? I mean, it's yummy, it's delicious for you, that is a good benefit. It also has your family working together. And one of the things that I have really found with kids and even spouses sometimes is that they're helping in the garden. They're a lot more likely and a lot more excited about eating what comes out of the garden. I don't remember why I have that picture in there. No, I can't tell you.
Peppers?
Yes, it is peppers. So, you can grow peppers. I don't know what to tell you that one. You can learn new skills. Working with your family, you can teach them how to cook the things and how to learn new skills, and you're learning new skills. A lot of you maybe have never canned some of this stuff before, or dehydrated some of it, or made your own marinara sauce from scratch, or salsa from scratch. And so you might be getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. It's really fun when you get out of your comfort zone, and then you get excited about learning new things. So hopefully, you're going to want to do that. You know, learning to can, we talked about that. It not only helps you with canning skills, but it helps add to your 90-day and long-term storage. And this is the picture I was talking about before. Instead of taking your neighbors you know, handfuls of zucchini, you can bring them some delicious bread that I'm sure they would open their door for you for and not run the other way. Okay, the other thing is you really need to practice. Gardening and cooking with stuff in your garden isn't something you just wake up one morning knowing how to do. It is a process. And there is a learning curve, especially with gardening. I've gotten good at some things, and where I think I've got it figured out, I'll go to grow it, you know, the next year, and it just doesn't grow for me. So, you know, the Antelope Valley is a little, you know, iffy when it comes to gardening, but I do love it, and I do love trying to do it. So practicing growing things and practicing cooking and canning and dehydrating are all different things, and I'm hoping that you're going to want to do. And next month when we do the canning, juicing, and dehydrating class, you'll get even some more skills to add to your little repertoire of what to do with your garden business. Okay, the little garden and a few trees are very valuable. I remember when the sisters used to say, well, we could buy it at the store a lot cheaper than we can put it up. But that isn't quite the answer, because there will come a time when there isn't a store. Or I added this, or going out to eat. Okay. I do not want to be a calamity howler. I don't know in detail what's going to happen in the future. I know what the prophets have predicted. We will see the day when we live on what we produce. There's a reason why they've been telling us for like 50 years to do gardens. And it's not just to make our houses look pretty. It's so that we have a way to be able to add to our food storage and to be able to eat fresh things and to be able to help our neighbors with that too. And not only that, but it really does help bring your families together. My grandson, who's 5, he loves to go, I mean, he comes to my house and he's always picking the strawberries before they're ripe. It drives me crazy. But he's excited about it, and I get excited about it. I love seeing things grow. I love seeing the things bloom, and it's amazing to me how fast some of the things grow. So anyway, we're going to break. I do have before we break, I just have a couple of announcements because I think almost everybody's here. So, we have some new things that are happening. So pay attention. Number 1, we're moving.
Oh.
We're not going to be in this building anymore. My stake just added a new Spanish branch who is going to be in my building, and one of the wards that was there is moving over to this building, and so because of that, our classes are moving to the Stake Center, which is the building that's on Avenue K, right across from the college. I do not know if we're going to be staying on the third Thursday. I won't know for a couple of weeks. As soon as I know, I will send you out details. We may be moving to Tuesdays. I don't think we'll be moving to Wednesdays, but it could be Tuesday. I don't know. I'm making a plea for Thursday, so hopefully that's where it stays. So that movement will happen in May. The May class will be in the other building. The May classes we've already talked about. It's going to be like the 3-in-1. We'll be doing 3 classes all over the 2.5 hours. The June class, how many have you been to the June class? Okay, the June class is the no-carb cooking class. Let me ask this. How many of you have not been to the no-carb cooking class? Yay! So I know you all want to come this year. Okay, the thing that's different about the no-carb cooking class is we do it outside. And we do it that way so we can actually show you how to use cooking without power in action, because we can't do that inside. So in June 1st, which is a Saturday, we will meet at the other building. And we will be outside, and we'll be in 6 groups, and we're going to rotate, and we're going to do solar cooking and rocket stoves. We have a new rocket stove design that I think you guys are going to like, using bricks that are really easy. We have cooking with, we call them wonder boxes. They're like bean bags that you can cook in. What else are we doing? Volcano stoves and Dutch oven cooking. And apple boxes. Apple boxes is just a box that we're going to bake in. You actually can bake in a cardboard box. I know you're going to find it hard to believe, but we do it, and you get to eat hot cookies at the class. So that is all June 1st, and the classes are free, and you will come and you'll rotate through all 6 classes. Each class is 20 minutes. Now, in conjunction with that, 3 weeks later, we have a workshop. At the workshop, you can come and make I don't know how much it is this year, but last year was, I think, $55. For $55, you could go home with 4 of the no-carb cookers. Okay? So the sign-ups, I will be sending those out in a couple of weeks. And we will sign up before the class and for a few days after that Saturday class, and then you'll come back on the 22nd and you'll get to rotate through however many. You can do 1 or all 4 of the cookers or whatever in between, and you can go home with the cookers that day. So isn't that sound exciting? So that's fun. Now, July, we're not doing a regular class, we're doing a no power cooking cook-off class. And so, because we want you to be using your no-power cookers, and as an incentive for you all to do this, we have a solar oven that was donated that will be the grand prize for whoever wins the cook-off. Okay? So start looking for recipes that you think you might be able to cook in a solar thing or an apple box oven or some kind of no-power way of cooking, Dutch oven cooking. And so that will be the July class, and that also will be on a Saturday in the afternoon. Well, afternoon and evening, and then that's all. If you are brand new to the class and you have not signed in, make sure that you sign in. That is how you get the handouts. That recipes for this class, I think there's 38 pages of recipes. Okay? I obviously didn't print those out for you. You have to do it yourself. So that's how you find out everything. And even if you're already on the list, just putting your name so I know that you're here is helpful to us. Your name and where you're from, that's really helpful to us. And if you're ordering, we're doing a Walton order right now. That order's due tomorrow, just a reminder. I'm not doing orders tonight, but if you should have already gotten information. I've sent it out lots of times. If you're brand new, I will, and you want to get in on that order, email me. Is my email on anything? It probably isn't. My email is AV, like an Antelope Valley, food storage @gmail.com. And you can email me, and I will send you the stuff for that order if you want to get in on it. And that's all. Okay, go enjoy your cooking, your eating. Be fast. Grab your food. Come back and sit down. I'm going to